The morning sun through her kitchen window didn't just illuminate the dust motes, it felt like a Klieg light on a stage where Eleanor performed a one-woman show for an audience of one who never really watched. For 9 years, her world had been a study in muted beige and silent expectation. Gregory's starched shirts ironed with military precision, floors mopped to a high-gloss finish that reflected her own lonely silhouette, and a schedule so ingrained the house itself seemed to tick with it. The grand, slightly shabby Victorian next door, with its perpetually dangling for sale sign, was her only view into possibility, a blank canvas onto which she sometimes projected fanciful, secret lives. Until the day the canvas erupted. The moving van arrived like a herald of chaos, and then they emerged. Juniper was the first, unfolding herself from the driver's seat of a vintage wagon with a grace that seemed to slow time. She wore paint-splattered overalls, her dark hair a wild corona around a face that was both serene and fiercely intelligent. Her movements as she directed the movers were economical, authoritative. The second woman seemed to bloom from the passenger side. Luna was all soft curves and gentle laughter, wrapped in an oversized pink cardigan that swallowed her hands. She carried a box that spilled over with the ears and paws of countless scuffed animals, and she moved with a buoyant, skipping lightness that was the direct opposite of Eleanor's own measured steps. Eleanor watched, hidden behind her curtain, as Juniper paused in her directing to catch Luna by the wrist, pulling her close to gently wipe a smudge of dirt from her cheek with a bare thumb. The gesture was so intimate, so effortlessly tender, it struck Eleanor with a physical ping. Their laughter, when it drifted across the manicured divide, wasn't the polite chuckle of neighbors. It was a rich, unfettered sound that seemed to soak into the very grass. That laughter became a secret soundtrack. It played in her mind as she arranged Gregory's breakfast with robotic care, eggs at 6:50, toast with the butter sealed to the crust. It hummed beneath the drone of the vacuum cleaner as she traversed the same pristine carpet paths. It echoed in the sterile silence of the afternoon as she ate a solitary lunch at the spotless table, a magazine on homemaking lying unread before her. The hollow ache in her center, a familiar companion she'd named Contentment for years, now throbbed with a new, sharper diagnosis: want. The invitation was a physical artifact of that new world. Thick, cream-colored paper slipped under her door. The handwriting was elegant yet bold, ink slightly indented into the fiber. To our new neighbor, a house is not a home until it's shared. Please join us for tea and improperly sifted conversation. Saturday, 3 p.m., no need to knock. Juniper and Luna. It felt like a summons to a secret society. Gregory would be at the club. She told herself she was just being polite. Stepping across the threshold of the Victorian was like passing through a sensory airlock. The air in her own home was still, filtered. Here it was alive, warm with the scent of vanilla bean, lavender, and beneath it a clean, powdery sweetness that whispered of nursery rhymes and security. Where her walls were bare and neutral, theirs were a gallery of vibrant art and overstuffed bookshelves. A giant shaggy rug the color of moss devoured the living room floor, strewn with pillows of every texture. In the center of this cozy chaos, Luna was curled like a kitten, deeply focused on braiding the yarn hair of a well-loved rag doll. "You're here!" Luna exclaimed, her face lighting up. She held up the doll. "This is Clementine. She's shy but very polite." Juniper emerged then, not from the kitchen, but from a shadowed hallway, as if she had been waiting in the wings. She had changed into soft linen trousers and a simple black top. Her smile was a quiet, powerful thing. "Eleanor," she said, her voice a low cello note, "welcome to our sanctuary." The tea was served in mismatched china. Luna's wasn't tea at all, but warm milk with honey in a cup that had a small, cheerful whale on it. She drank through a flexible silicone straw, her feet tucked under her. The conversation was effortless, disarming. They asked about her favorite color. She had to think about it. Blue? The books she loved. Had she read any since college? The music that made her want to dance. She couldn't remember. Juniper listened with her whole body, her dark eyes missing nothing. Luna listened with her heart, nodding along, offering soft sounds of encouragement. You spend your days anticipating needs, Juniper observed, not unkindly. You are the architect, the builder, and the caretaker of a world for another person. It's a monumental task. But who builds the world for you, Eleanor? Who holds the blueprint for your peace? The question hung in the fragrant air. Luna, setting down her milk, added in a voice like confiding a secret. Juniper holds mine. She knows when my head gets too loud and crowded with grown-up things. She helps me set them all down. Sometimes that means I get to be very small. It's not pretending. It's just letting a part of me breathe. It feels like the safest hug in the world. A part of me breathe. The phrase unlocked a chest deep inside Eleanor. She saw it then not as a game or a kink, but as an ecology of care. Juniper was the steadfast, nurturing tree. Luna was the flowering vine, trusting and open, thriving in that protected space. The longing that washed over Eleanor was so profound, it felt like grief. Grief for a self she'd never been allowed to know. She tried, once, to bridge the chasm between these two worlds. That evening, after Gregory's recitation of his day, she ventured, her voice thin, I read something about couples exploring different roles for closeness. Maybe we could try something new. He looked up from his tablet as if she'd spoken in a foreign tongue. His sigh was a masterpiece of condescension. Eleanor, we have a good, respectable life. I don't have time for psychological games. Your role is here. Be satisfied with it. The door slammed not just on the idea, but on the part of her that had dared to conceive it. That night, the silence of the bedroom was a vacuum, sucking all the hope out of her. Days later, a hollow shell, she found herself on their porch steps at twilight. She had no pretext, no baked goods. She was simply crumbling. Juniper opened the door and, without a word, gathered her in. The sob that broke from Eleanor's chest was the sound of a dam she didn't know she'd built, collapsing. She was led to the center of the moss-colored rug, where the pillows seemed to gather around her like a soft fortress. Luna brought a blanket that smelled of fabric softener and faintly of juniper sandalwood perfume. Juniper pressed a sippy cup into her trembling hands, a simple, no-spill cup with a soft spout filled with spiced apple cider. The act of raising it to her lips, of suckling the warm sweetness, bypassed her ravaged intellect and went straight to a primal, soothed place in her soul.
That's it, Juniper murmured, her hand a steady, warm weight on Eleanor's back. Let it go. You've been the strong one for so long. Your only job right now is to be held. Can you do that for me? Can you let me hold you together? It was the first direct order given for her benefit, not for the maintenance of a household. Eleanor nodded, a jerky, childlike motion, and sank into the permission. What followed was not an avalanche, but a gentle, inexorable tide. Juniper began to structure their time together with gentle, firm intentionality. We build trust in increments, she explained one afternoon, while Luna meticulously sorted crayons by color. Your first rule is this. You must ask. No hinting, no hoping I'll guess. If you are thirsty, say, I'm thirsty. If you need a hug, say, I need a hug. Your voice will be heard here. The simplicity was excruciating. For Eleanor, whose worth was tied to anticipating needs before they were voiced, explicitly stating her own felt like a grotesque failure. But when she finally whispered, my feet are cold, and Juniper smiled, fetched thick, fuzzy socks, and warmed them in the dryer before tenderly putting them on, the resulting flood of care was addictive. Good girl, Juniper said, and the praise was a sunburst in her chest. Then came the afternoon Juniper brought out the wooden box. It was unassuming, but its arrival filled the room with a new electric potential. Inside, folded with care, lay a footed sleep suit made of the softest cotton fleece Eleanor had ever touched in a calming seafoam flu. Beneath it, wrapped in tissue, was a single premium disposable diaper. It was thick, impossibly white, and adorned with a subtle, repeating pattern of tiny, whimsical stars. "These," she said, her voice calm and factual, "are tools, practical tools for a specific kind of care. This," she laid a hand on the sleep suit, "is a uniform of comfort. It signals to your body and mind that you are off duty. And this," her fingers brushed the diaper, "is the ultimate delegation. It is the physical proof that you are relieved of a fundamental adult responsibility. It allows for a cognitive and emotional unburdening that words alone cannot achieve. It is about creating a space where worry, the simple, mundane worry of a bodily function, cannot exist. Here, in this space with me, that worry becomes mine to manage. Your only task is to accept the care." Luna, listening while cuddling a plush fox, nodded sagely. "It's the best feeling, Ellie. It's like your brain gets to take a long, warm bath. All the fizz and noise just quiet down." The choice felt monumental. It was the Rubicon. Embarrassment warred with a desperate, yearning curiosity. She looked at Juniper's open, patient face, at Luna's encouraging smile, and then at the empty, polished cage of her own life, visible through the window. "Green," she whispered, the word a tiny, brave flame. "I choose green." The transformation was ritualistic. Juniper led her to a cozy, lamp-lit bedroom that felt like a nursery designed by a loving architect. The changing pad was thick and padded, covered in soft terry cloth. Juniper's movements were methodical, gentle, and utterly devoid of erotic charge. This was not about titillation. It was about procedure, about care. As the thick, crinkling garment was fastened snugly around her hips, Eleanor closed her eyes, expecting shame. Instead, what bloomed was a profound, shocking sensation of rightness. The weight, the soft containment, the faint, clean scent. It felt less like an addition and more like the removal of a constant low-grade anxiety she hadn't even known she carried. When Juniper gently guided her feet into the sleep suit and zipped it up the front, the sensation of being fully enclosed in softness was overwhelmingly secure. "All done, sweet pea," Juniper said, giving the padded seat an affectionate pat. "All taken care of. No more thoughts about that. Your world now is blocks and colors and rest." Led back to the living room, walking with the gentle, rustling whisper of the diaper between her thighs, Eleanor felt oddly peaceful. She settled on the rug. Luna immediately pushed a bin of Duplo blocks toward her. For the next hour, Eleanor didn't think about dinner, or Gregory's dry cleaning, or the unpaid bills. She thought about making a tower tall enough to touch the ceiling. She giggled when it fell. She accepted the cut-up apple slices Juniper brought, eating them with her fingers. The pacifier, when it was offered, a simple silicone one on a clip, was at first a line she hesitated at, but Juniper coaxed, "for quiet minds." And when she finally took it, the rhythmic, instinctive suckle triggered a wave of deep, almost meditative calm. The adult world, with all its sharp edges and relentless demands, softened, blurred, and receded into a distant hum.
The return to her own home that evening was a dissonant jolt. The air was stale and silent. Her tailored slacks felt abrasive and constricting. The weight of her own bladder, suddenly her responsibility again, felt like an annoying chore. She stood in her perfect kitchen, but she was no longer just the wife who lived there. She was a woman who carried a secret, a glowing ember of a truth in her core. There was a part of her that was small and soft and in desperate need of care, and that part had been seen, named, and cherished. She didn't know what this would mean. She didn't know how the careful fiction of her marriage would weather the tectonic shift occurring within her. But as she lay in bed that night, listening to Gregory's steady snore, the memory of the diaper's quiet crinkle and the sleep suit's fleecy embrace was a lullaby. She had found a door in the wall of her world, and on the other side was not an escape, but a homecoming. The journey into that tender, vulnerable, and profoundly real space had just begun, and every instinct told her it was the only journey that had ever truly mattered.